Hey guys, what's up? It is week 135. Got a bunch of reviews for you. I'm still on my 2019 kick, so there's going to be a bunch of 2019 reviews. I got Jeremy sitting in with me for a couple. I want to let you guys know on my audio, I guess my podcast feed, which is basically the audio versions of this show. I do occasionally fan commentaries from Patreon, so I recently did a Dawn of the Dead 1978 extended cut commentary with Felton and Jeremy, a continuation of kind of the Day of the Dead one. So if you are interested, there'll be a link below, or just subscribe to my feed on Stitcher or Podbeam under Shut Up Brandon Podcast. So also check it out. You can get audio versions of this because I know this is an awful long show a lot of the time, so audio is always the best way to go. Listen to it on the go, you know? I guess we're going to start off with the first review from Mondo Macabro, and it is a frickin' doozy. 1977, some places I've seen 76, Joe D'Amato, Emanuelle in America. Yes, from Mondo Macabro, one of the best labels. Probably one, like I said, one of the most underrated labels. Emanuelle in America. What can I say about this? Joe D'Amato, like I said, is probably one of the most underappreciated directors out there as far as the Italian guys are concerned. He's a great cinematographer. You guys would know his films probably more from his horror stuff like Death Smiles on a Murderer and Anthropophagus, Absurd. He's done tons of movies, but he did a lot of, exploitation movies as well, and Emanuelle movies. Emanuelle and the Last Cannibals, and of course Emanuelle in America. This stars Laura Gemser, of course. This is like the Black Emanuelle series, which is inspired by, the softcore movies Emanuelle. There's a whole series of those. This series went on forever. There's tons of the original series, and then there's tons of these ripoffs. Very, very long, kind of elaborate, weird history of exploitation movies involving Emanuelle. So, okay, Laura Gemser is a reporter, and she wants to get this scoop on this weird kind of sex club. So, or this kind of rich millionaire, I don't know what he is, playboy, who basically has all these women around that he sleeps with whenever he wants. Picks them by their zodiac sign. So that's really weird and silly and ridiculous. Lorraine DeSalle is in this scene. So she basically, Laura Gemser kind of screws her way to stories. She has lesbian experiences, screws everybody to get these kind of stories. And she has these hidden cameras. So she's taking all these pictures. And while she's on this escapade, she kind of notices that somebody's watching this weird, crazy snuff film that looks really real. So she's interested in that. That is the major story she wants to go and investigate. So she kind of goes in this whole crazy trip to find this. She ends up in Italy, and it's really funny. It's called Emanuelle in America, but most of the movie doesn't even take place in America. I was like, this is false advertising. I want Emanuelle in America, okay? So, basically, it's a lot of softcore scenes, and then there's some hardcore scenes in here and inserts like that. So there's all sorts of, there's full frontal everywhere. Super sleazy, super ridiculous. Gets very repetitive. I enjoy the music. There's some familiar faces. You see Gabriel Tinti in here, who is Laura Gemser's real husband. He was much older, but, he's like kind of a good-looking, older, kind of distinguished gentleman. He was in a slew of these movies. He started his career very young and bigger movies and ended up in exploitation movies like Emanuelle and the Last Cannibals, Emanuelle in America. So the cast is okay, it's decent, but there's really one thing that stands out in this movie. I mean, there's a couple things, but the major thing in here is the snuff footage. She ends up finding the snuff footage, and that scene alone is worth the price of admission. It's just something that's such a precursor in 1976, 77, how gratuitous it is and how real it looks. I know there was some infamous kind of, infamy behind the scene where Joe D'Amato was sued by one of the actresses in that scene who said she had some psychological damage brought upon her. That tells you anything. Basically, what she does is she seduces a guy and finds this snuff reel, and they watch it, and it's graphic. There's people being tortured, somebody with a fish hook in their mouth that's being ripped while they're being raped from behind, somebody, nipples being cut off. It is nasty. And the way it's shot, the way it's degraded, Joe D'Amato said he scratched up 35 millimeter to make it look like 8 millimeter, and they kept doing that because he was familiar, with 35 millimeter, cinematographer and everything like that. So he used that and made it look like 8 millimeter. Regardless, it is probably one of the most effective scenes in any of the Emanuelle movies I've seen, and an exploitation movie in general. It's way ahead of its time. The effects are great. It's Giannotti De Rossi, of course. So that whole scene right there, I feel like it was one of the game changers in the Italian horror and exploitation world, and it's really grueling and nasty, and shocking. Besides that, I really do think the movie is kind of a bore fest, kind of a snooze fest, because fairly repetitive to me. I mean, I only can watch so many sex scenes with Laura Gemser and be interested. I know that sounds really terrible, and people will be like, "Oh, what are you talking about?" Yes, but there's just so much nudity and stuff, and it's the same thing over and over again. There is some unintentional funny moments. I mean, Laura Gemser basically rapes this kind of closeted lesbian woman at one point, and I know that doesn't sound funny, but it's played for laughs. And it's not even played for laughs. It just comes across comical because it's kind of so ridiculously done. That's kind of Italian exploitation in a lot of ways. And there's a ridiculous scene where somebody wants to kill her for the pictures that she's taken part of in this newspaper. Wants to kill her because they're spreading the filth, which kind of reminds me of that Pinky movie I watched a couple weeks ago, the Zoom Up Pinky movie. I can't think of the actual title, but you can look it up. So he's basically angry with her, and she seduces him. So she screws her way out of so many problems and everything like that. That's how she gets out of things. And there is some, I guess, mention, kind of statement on the media that they won't run the story in here and there. But really, the highlight is the snuff reel. And I know that sounds horrible. I mean, it's not even a highlight. It's just the thing that stands out, and you're just like, oh my god, geez, that takes you back. It looks good. It sounds good. Like I said, I enjoyed the soundtrack. I believe you can watch it in Italian and English. There's some nice features on here. There's an uncut interview with Joe D'Amato, who died years back, and I've seen some of this in other things, but this one's, it seems longer, and they cut in some things from other movies, his career, and I just like the guy. He's very jovial, and he's straightforward and everything like that, and funny, so that's always nice to see him talk, and there's not that many interviews with him. This is pretty much all the stuff I've seen with him comes from this one very, very long interview, and this is a fairly long one. Every time I put it in, I always am captivated to hear him talk. There's a nice commentary involving Bruce Holchek, who runs the Cinema Arcania, I believe it is, website, and he's very knowledgeable, and I can't think of who else he does it with, another kind of film historian, so they go back and forth about the Emanuelle films. It's a nice commentary, and then on top of that, there is, I believe there was a history of Emanuelle films on there, and they went through all those and everything like that. It's a nice release. It's a movie that I'm not particularly fond of. I prefer The Last Cannibals, but I like cannibal films more, and I like a lot of Joe D'Amato movies more myself, Beyond the Darkness and Anthropophagus, but this one's worth checking out, and it's kind of like one of those turning points in Italian horror cinema or exploitation cinema. So Emanuelle in America.
My name is Matt. Anyway, I'm interested in doing a story.
Well, I think it could be very dangerous, Emanuelle.
It's the raw horror of it that excites me.
This is a dangerous game.
I was scared of him. With a crazy guy like that, anything might have happened.
Okay, the next one here is from Arrow Video, and this is from 1972, and this is Slaughterhouse-Five. Based off the very famous Kurt Vonnegut's novel, which I have read. It's been years. It was in college, and I remember it being a very, very interesting novel. The movie here, it's very close to the novel. I was kind of surprised. I had always heard that it was really something that wasn't very well adapted, or, it wasn't a good adaptation of the novel, but I think that's kind of wrong. I don't think there is a very good way to adapt this story, and this is about as close as you're going to get. If anybody knows the story or the novel or anything about it, it follows the story of a character named Billy Pilgrim who claims to jump through time. So basically he is writing kind of, I guess, like his memoirs in a way, but in the beginning, but it jumps through all these times, and you're supposed to believe that Billy Pilgrim is someone who actually is going through different points of time in his life, but you also think that there's possible moments of delusion or mental instability. And the thing about Billy Pilgrim is he's kind of like a character that just stumbles his way through life. He ends up in the war, he ends up as a business exec, he marries a rich woman, and so he stumbles his way through life kind of never connecting to that many people and just somehow making it and just coming out on top in a lot of weird ways. But this also has a huge sci-fi element, not just the time jumping, but it has this stuff where he claims to be abducted by aliens in the future, and he is there with a famous kind of a softcore actress that he was always intrigued by, trapped in the enclosure with her. So you see that it is fantasy. There is these fantasy elements, and the parts that he's yet to live of his life are more fantastical. And the idea that when he jumps around into his body and he hops back to World War II in Dresden and everything like that, you think, oh, this, and then you see him kind of shift into the moment, like, and he'll be thinking about something from the future, and the other characters are like, what are you doing? And you think, is this someone who's been delusional their whole life that just kind of makes these things up, or is it someone remembering their past in a sort of messed up way because they have a lot of trouble and problems, and all these things that happen to Billy Pilgrim, you can see why he ended up so strange and so weird. He has, combat shock or post-traumatic stress disorder from the World War II incident in Dresden and all those things. And he had a head injury. So it's just like you wonder and you really start to ask yourself a lot of things. And in this novel, there was a really interesting moment in the novel that, I believe reading this novel would help you understand the movie more, because I wasn't confused or anything like that because I'd read the book about him that says he always quotes the Alcohol's Anonymous kind of saying, or give me the courage to understand. And this is like that kind of sums him up in a lot of ways, even though he wasn't an alcoholic. But he's just it's such an interesting idea. And there's moments that are really, really depressing, and they're not done in over dramatic ways. Billy Pilgrim doesn't seem to have any kind of connection to anything, really. He lives in his own world. The only connection he had was with the dog. So he just doesn't ever get emotional, and the scenes that should be very emotional are just like almost matter of fact and everything like that. Billy Pilgrim's played by kind of a non-known actor. It's a solid performance, and it's pretty good. I noticed that Perry King was in this movie, which is nice, and Kevin Conway, which was a nice surprise as well. And there are some comedic moments here, especially by people like Paul Lazaro, who's just a ridiculous piece of shit. And there's, like I said, really crazy moments in war and everything like that that are super sad. And you hate I can't stand Nazis, especially after watching stuff like this. But it's a really kind of very interesting, almost excellent movie in its own way. And I just find it kind of has a lot of layers, and you can kind of just dive into like the psychology and science fiction of it and think what's real, what's fake, how is this working, and how is the human brain kind of working. On the disc, there's an interview with a film historian about the music of the movie, because they use kind of like, I believe, kind of like classical kind of style music, score and stuff like that. And then there's an interview with the producer's son, I believe. And then Perry King has a nice interview on here. And there's a segment with Kim Newman who dives into stuff, and that's really excellent as well. Love Kim Newman. He has a lot of nice things to say about this movie. And I do think this one's kind of underrated. Like when I was watching it, I was expecting, I was like, I don't know about this one, because for years I heard people kind of poo-pooed on it. And I think it's a great book. It's a one-of-a-kind book for me. And I think it's a pretty damn good movie version of that book. And everything, like I said. And there's just a wonderful scene where he's in a hospital bed, and he's kind of ranting in and out of his sleep, and this other guy's complaining, this old kind of Warhawk, and he's complaining that this guy's nuts, and then he's telling his daughter, is it, or I don't know, secretary, somebody, maybe he's Boner or something, that he's writing this book, yada yada yada, and he's going to tell the true story. And he says people never wanted to talk about Dresden because bleeding hearts would cry about what they did in Dresden, because if anybody knows the history of war, Dresden was a civilian town, and the Allied forces bombed it. So he's talking about it, and then Billy Pilgrim, in like a stupor, wakes up and says, I was there. And he says, what'd he say? He says he was there, and he's like, let him write his own damn book. And it's just like, see, Billy never stands up for himself. He doesn't ever really, he wasn't even really opinionated about it. He just stated that he was there. He's just such a kind of a delusional character. Sorry about that. There might be a little jumbled thing there, but regardless, I'm just saying that he doesn't ever stand up for himself. He's just such a delusional character. So, yeah, that's Slaughterhouse-Five. I really recommend checking this one out if you slept on it before, or even if you read the book and you're interested in it. It's worth checking out.
Schlachthof-Five. This is Schlachthof-Five. Five is English 5. Schlacht is slaughter. Hof is house. Schlachthof-Five. Slaughterhouse-Five. Your house.
Billy? Billy!
Can you hear me, Pilgrim? Huh? Can you hear me, Pilgrim? When do you want it, huh? When do you want it, Pilgrim? You'll never know when it's gonna happen. Maybe years, maybe not. Son. This pork chop killed a friend of mine.
I didn't. I just
Man
bumped
is
into
sick. Yeah? Well, he's gonna be dead.
Billy! Billy, Mama's here. The war's over. You can come out now.
The patient was a prisoner of war in Dresden when it was bombed. He claims that well over 100,000 people were burned to death in the fire, worse than Hiroshima. And since Billy was actually there, it's natural enough to assume that this has had a contributing effect on his present condition.
He's ready, Doctor.
You're going to sleep now, Billy.
Welcome to the planet Tralfamador, Mr. Pilgrim.
Happy birthday, Todd.
And don't give up dreaming, for true love will come smiling through.
See, in Tralfamador, where I presently dwell, life has no beginning, no middle, and no end. For example, many years ago, a certain man promised to have me killed. He's an old man now, living not far from here. He's read all the publicity associated with my appearance. He's insane. Tonight he'll keep his promise.
Okay, this next one is from Arrow Academy, and it's directed by Jim Jarmusch, and this is The Limits of Control. And this is one I haven't heard of. I'm kind of familiar with Jim Jarmusch. I've seen things like Dead Man, Ghost Dog, Only Lovers Left Alive, and I think I've seen another one too. So, I'm a little familiar with his kind of filmography, and I've always enjoyed what I saw. The Limits of Control is a strange one. 2008, 2009 movie. Has a nice cast, but most of them are kind of just very small roles in here. Paz, I can't think of her name, from Nurse 3D is in here. Bill Murray, Tilda Swinton, John Hurt. So, like I said, it's got a nice cast. But the lead is kind of almost a relatively unknown actor to me. And the plot of this one is strange. It starts off almost like a mystery. You would say like crime, kind of almost noir thing, but you really don't know exactly what's happening. We have this character who, there's lots of languages in here, and he's almost a silent character. He doesn't talk all that much. He kind of just soaks in a lot of things. And he meets with someone who's speaking in Creole, however the hell you say it, the Louisiana kind of deal. And there's a translator explaining everything to him, and he gets a matchbox that says boxer on it. And this is, I believe, in Spain. And the key word everybody asks him is, "You don't speak Spanish?" And he just says no and shakes his head. And I guess that's kind of his key to go through. So basically, he orders 2 espressos wherever he goes, and people will approach him and switch the matchboxes with him. So, and it leads him to the next person. He gets hints from everyone, and each person leads him to his destination. And you never know what his destination is going to be. So, and that's where he meets all these quirky characters who become like these almost self-indulgent vessels for I believe Jim Jarmusch, where like he'll be like, somebody will talk about movies, or somebody will talk about painting or music or science. So they are all these elaborate kind of things, and all these people seem to have one thing in common: they're all on the same force, going after the same kind of thing. And I don't necessarily want to give away what they're going after, because it's kind of weird and different, and you really don't know. And while I was watching this, I'm like, am I supposed to pick up on exactly where they're going, or am I just supposed to kind of enjoy the journey and see how they go through? There's some nice shots in here. I like the longer shots that they'll do, where he, the lead character, I can't think of his character's name, I don't even know if he has one, he's kind of a strange character, is walking down like out of his hotel room, and it follows him go down the stairs, and it never cuts, and you see him go down through the stairwell, but it's like at an angle so you can see the whole thing and watch him leave. I like that kind of stuff. There's lots of beautiful locations. There's lots of an element of repetitiveness in the movie. So he'll order the espressos and pick up the things and the matchboxes and switch and everything. And it finally leads to almost a crime element, which it definitely leads to a crime element, which I don't exactly want to explain. And the motives are never quite divulged. And if they are divulged, they're done such in a small way that I could never pinpoint where they were. But there is a sense of danger and a sense of kind of like impending doom towards the people that he is meeting at certain times. There's some really fun moments, I guess. Like I enjoyed, especially Paz in this movie. She's really fun and pretty much naked the whole movie, so that is a plus. The lead, he's an interesting character. He's quiet and silent, and like I said, he kind of just has to kind of switches his clothes after every place he visits and everything like that. So while watching, I wasn't necessarily super intrigued. I was intrigued to see what was going to happen, but I was never fully invested because I never knew what was going on to a certain extent. I mean, my investedness came from wanting to know what was happening, which is a good thing, but also I was never in really could grasp onto anything, never anything to grab onto 110%. I do think it's worth checking out. I think it's a well shot movie, an interesting movie with a nice cast. Bill Murray's pretty good in it, of course. He always is solid. And I do think that it does have these self-indulgent moments where there'll be characters talking about their favorite movies that kind of somewhat probably reflect what's happening in the movie at times. So there's some special features on here. I'm gonna have to cheat a little bit. I can't remember everything. There is a vintage making of with Jim Jarmusch on the set, and then there's a video interview with Jeff Andrew, author of Stranger Than Paradise, Maverick Filmmakers in Recent American Cinema, and The Rituals of Control, new video essay by film and author critic Amy Simmons, and she talks about a lot of his movies and stuff like that a little bit, going over everything, his early career. They both do, and those kind of things. So it's an interesting movie, just not something that I would be really super fast to revisit.
Go to the towers, go to the cafe, wait a couple of days, and watch for the violin.
No guns, no sex. How can you stand it?
It's like a game. Deception. Suspicion.
How did you get in here?
I used my imagination.
Among us, there are those who are not among us.
I'm among no one.
Is this your twisted idea of revenge?
Revenge is useless.
Everything's imagined. Sometimes the reflection is far more present than the thing being reflected.
Okay, this next one is the new one, and it's 2019 movie. It is the remake of Child's Play. All right, let me let you guys know something. You know, I've seen the first 4 Child's Play movies, and, you know, I enjoy them here and there. I really like the second and third one, especially the third one because it's so stupid, and I grew up with that one. But saying this, I don't have, like, this fan ownership of the Child's Play movies. So when I was like, a remake, I was like, okay, if it sounds good, I hear it's good, I'm going to check it out. And doing the end of the year show on Moods of Horror, I was like, well, I better check out the Child's Play remake. And Black Friday, $10, why not? Ordered it. And I got to say, I enjoyed it. It's an updated version. It doesn't follow the whole voodoo kind of storyline where Charles Lee Ray puts his soul into the doll. Because I'm going to be honest, in the original Child's Play, when I tried to rewatch that a while back, it's such like a nice thriller that moment almost becomes out of place and silly. And you got to buy that to get into the movie. And I always kind of just laughed in the first one. And the rest of them, I'm already in there. You don't have to see that, so you're in. But this one, it follows definitely like an automated kind of storyline with technology being kind of the enemy here. Think of Evolver or something like that, where technology is misinterpreting things and goes kind of haywire. We have a family of a young woman, and she's kind of like in a kind of crappy part of town. I believe it's got to be Chicago. Would they make the remake in Chicago? But they don't really mention it, if I don't understand. Kind of a dirty city, though, regardless. Well, she's kind of struggling. She has, I think, like a 13, 14-year-old son, so too old to have dolls. But she works at kind of this store, and they're going to toss one of the Chucky dolls or the Child's Play, I don't know, My Buddy dolls out. I don't remember what they're called in here. Jeez. And they're not called My Buddy, of course. I can't remember what they're called, but they're going to toss one out because it doesn't work properly. She takes it, and of course, this one is defective. You see why it's defective in the very beginning, and kind of a nice scene where they show you where these dolls come from and the exploitative nature of the kind of, Vietnam and India, how they make all these things for Americans and consumerism, yada, yada, yada. They're going for that a little bit. So this one is defective for certain reasons. The doll doesn't learn. It doesn't have these inhibitors that stop it from doing certain things like violence. So all it wants to do is protect Andy. And how it gets its name is really funny and stuff like that. They changed some things around. Mark Hamill does the voice of the doll, and I think he does a solid job. There are shout-outs to a few, pretty much any MGM property, because I think this is the MGM one, so you'll see shout-outs to Poltergeist 3, Killer Clowns from Outer Space, RoboCop, some things like that. So that's kind of nice. I enjoyed it. A lot of these directors nowadays wear their kind of influences on their sleeves, so they do that a lot. So I enjoy the idea, how Chucky basically is learning things and does everything completely different. It changes the story around, but I enjoyed it. And you know what? At certain points, this reminded me of Puppet Master Littlest Reich towards the end of the film. And it does end in kind of a big way. I enjoyed the side characters. The side characters in the movie are funny. You know, the dick kind of the boyfriend or whatever of the mother is a turd. I like the cop in this one. I like how he's handled. I like the cop's mother. I like some of the lines that the cop has. The poetic justice line cracked me up. It's ridiculous, though. I mean, it's about a killer doll. It's stupid. It's gory. It's just kind of dummy kind of stuff in there. Kids are the main characters. I like that, too. It's enjoyable. It surprised me. I didn't expect much from it, but actually, I really, really liked it. It was gory. It was funny. It was entertaining. It ended on a big note. I would watch a sequel. I like this kind of stuff. And I don't want to spoil too much, but like it does get a little bigger at the end. The kills, like I said, are bloody. I wish there was a couple more. But I would recommend checking this one out. It is a solid and fun remake. It's pretty cool. Child's Play.
Something's wrong with Chucky.
Andy, I know this move has been really tough, but this is supposed to be a new start for us, remember? You said you were going to try to make new friends.
Buddy can connect to and control all of your Caslin products and smart home devices. Introducing your new best friend.
Mom, I need to tell you something, and I need you to believe me. I think Chucky did something.
Andy, if you know something, you better tell me.
Something's wrong with Chucky.
Buddy can connect to and control all of your Caslin products.
Chucky is a toy.
He could be anywhere.
Welcome to Caslin Car.
We have to stop him. Chucky!
Good night, Andy.
Okay, this next one here is a 4K, picked up on Black Friday, and it is Brightburn. Yeah. So I wanted to check this one out again. James Gunn wrote this, so that interested me. And it was basically presented to me as, what if Superman was bad when he came to Earth? So we have a couple here, a fairly likable couple that's trying to have a kid. They're not having any luck. One day, a meteor crashes in their backyard. There's a baby in it, some sort of spaceship. They take the baby, and then we fast forward about 10 years. So the kid's kind of growing up, and he's highly intelligent. He just seems like a good kid, but like apes or something, or kids in themselves, when they start to go through puberty, they change, they lash out. And what happens when a superhuman, super person lashes out and goes through that puberty change? Well, the ship that they keep in the barn starts to kind of talk to him, and he starts to realize that, there's something else going on, and he starts to change. He starts to develop these kind of psychological problems that you see in a lot of other kind of monsters, in the history. So slight spoilers here. It's what if Superman was a serial killer. That's basically what happens here, and he kind of designs his outfit and everything, and you see the creation of this super villain, but it's such in a grounded world that everything else is grounded. There's no other supernatural elements. There's no other things that don't seem to happen, and he is horrifying. There's moments where he actually starts to develop feelings for this girl, and she rejects him, and he has this revenge. He has no empathy. He has no sympathy for anyone else. He's just a sociopath. So he lashes out, he hides things, and it gets pretty dark and pretty crazy, and it does the things what you think a superhero would do to kill people, like a supervillain. It goes there. It's gory, and a couple of the deaths are pretty brutal. So I really like this one, and without spoiling too much, I don't want to go in depth about it, but I didn't see much wrong with it, to be honest. I like the father and the mother, especially the father. I thought he was a realistic character, and he kind of fills the shoes of those, those kind of I'm seeing like a character type where like the father is kind of like a big burly kind of guy, but he's also a little funny and a little likable in a lot of these things. But he also, he's not a pushover either. He seems like, I feel like we're getting more legitimate kind of acting parents in movies nowadays, and I like that. I really like the father in this, like I said, and it's really kind of messed up and twisted, and I like that they start to find these things and everything like that about him, and he develops his own symbol and everything like that, and it gets pretty crazy, and I can't say much more without spoiling the hell out of it. But Brightburn, good stuff.
Mom?
Who am I?
You are a gift. We believe that you came here for a reason. I know it's been difficult for you lately, that you feel different from other kids.
Just the floor, Brian.
You are different.
Caitlin, give him a hand up.
He's a creep.
Help him up.
What are you doing?
I want him in handcuffs and I want him gone. Do you even know who his real mother is?
I'm his real mother. Let's go.
Maybe there is something wrong with Brandon.
I will never turn against our son.
He's not my son.
Hey, who's messing with me?
Something wrong?
Boy around by chance?
You're one of the only people in the world that knows how special I am.
There are believed to be no survivors among the 268 passengers on board.
No, no, no!
Whatever you've done, I know there is good inside you.
Tori! You're safe now.
You
I want to do good, Mom. I do.
Okay, the next one I watched on Amazon Prime, another 2019 movie, or widely released in America in 2019, called Tumbbad. And this is an Indian horror movie. And this one actually blew me away. It opens up with kind of this setting here, and I don't know how accurate it is. I don't know Indian religions and myths and things like that, so I don't know if this is basis in anything is actually there, or they just made it up for the movie. So there's this god, I believe, Hazard, or whatever it is. They basically say that he was one of the many gods made. And he becomes this greedy person that ends up wanting to steal all the gold and food, and he succeeds in stealing all the gold, but he never gets the food. So basically what happens to him is he is banished to the goddess's womb, and he can never leave, but he has all the gold, but he's always constantly hungry, and he's just a horrible, spiteful monster. So basically this thing is kind of forgotten to time. He's hidden from all scriptures and everything like that until somebody makes, in this town, this city called Tumbbad, makes a sculpting of him. And that kind of brings him back, and the town is shrouded in rain because of it. And the opening of this movie is divided into 3 chapters. The first chapter follows a young kid and then shows him grow up throughout and everything, and his greed. It's kind of like There Will Be Blood, but the horror Indian version, if that makes any sense. It's a story about greed. So they learn right away in the beginning of the movie, he has this grandmother who's very, very old, and she always is constantly asleep, and they must feed her all the time. She wakes up once a day and she must be fed. And she's very scary and just gross and like got hundreds of years old, it seems like. The 2 young children are terrified of her. The mother leaves to take care of, she's basically a mistress for this guy. And that's actually his grandmother, but they call her grandmother. I'm not sure if there is actually a family relation. She actually might be, it's kind of strange there. I believe there is family relations and everything like that. But there's this mansion where the old man is, where he... and there's supposed to be hidden treasure there. Without giving too much away, that's the first chapter, and some tragedy happens, and you see the kid's greed right away. And the second is him kind of grown up, coming back and finding his riches and finding this treasure. But he learns that, how to do this and everything like that. And you learn that this isn't exactly just bury treasure. There's a whole thing to it. It falls into the myth of the story in the beginning and kind of duplicates with the grandmother, where she must be fed or she's going to wake up. And nobody wants that. There's some really great imagery here. It takes place, I believe, in like the 20s all the way to the 40s, where India became like a free country. So it starts off to this point where it's like a time period movie where you see India grow as a country. It's like the backdrop of this horrible greed story and everything like that. But I'm without spoiling too much. There is a curse in this movie where if you're touched, it's a fate way worse than death, and that's what the grandmother has. Without spoiling too much, like I said, but it actually hits a certain point where they mix like CGI and practical, I think, at the end, and that's really terrifying. They use some really great moments. The suspense is great, and the development of this character over 3 chapters of first being a young man, and then a man creating his own fortune, and then teaching his son the fortune as well is excellent. I thought his performance was top notch. I thought that everything about the growing as the period was top notch, and what he did for the money and the gold and everything like that, and his sacrifice at the end and everything like that. You didn't know how it was going to go, if it was going to be something, the greed was going to consume him, or without, like I said. So it's a really interesting movie. It's really cool. It's a great myth. It's a great story. I would highly recommend this one. It also, at times, it reminds me of, like the Indonesian movie Satan's Slave, which is last year, which I thought was excellent. So it's got these crazy myth that I just loved. So good stuff and everything like that. So great. Tumbbad.
पूर्ति की देवी और ये पृथ्वी देवी की कोख है। जब ब्रह्मांड की शुरुआत हुई तो देवी ने इसी कोख से 16 करोड़ देवी देवताओं को जन्म दिया, पर देवी को सबसे ज्यादा प्यार था अपनी पहली संतान से, हस्तर से। कई युग बीत गए, हस्तर अपनी माँ की कोख में सोता रहा, और एक दिन हमारे ही पूर्वजों ने उसे याद किया और उसके नाम का मंदिर बना दिया।
पर हमने उसे जगाया ही क्यों?
क्योंकि हस्तर का शाप हमारे लिए वरदान है। डरा नहीं रहा हूं, तुम्बाड़ के लिए तैयार कर रहा हूं।
Okay, this next one I watched on Shudder, and it is Nightmare Cinema. This is an anthology horror movie directed by, there's 5 segments in here and a wraparound. Mick Garris kind of put this thing together. He has a segment in here. And who else is in here? David Slade, Joe Dante, and a couple others. So the 5 segments. The wraparound is basically people are walking down the street. They see this theater. They see their name on the marquee and the title, and they're like, what the hell? So they go in and they basically watch the outcome of their life. You know how that thing worked, like Tales from the Crypt, the original. We're walking in this tomb. We get closed in the door, and everybody tells a dream or something they had, and it turns out it's their fate. So hopefully I remember these stories in correct order. The first one starts off as this kind of wacky slasher movie, over the top gory, about this welder killer slashing and hacking everybody, and you're thinking, okay, this is just kind of a take on the slasher genre. It turns itself on its head and becomes something else, almost like an alien invasion, kind of a killer bug movie, which becomes kind of cool. I saw some complaints that people were calling this kind of misogynistic because the main character is like obsessed with a woman and the woman's begging him to kill him. Regardless, this one is fun. Some of the CGI is and not a bad short at all. Hopefully I get these in order if I remember. The next one is a bonkers kind of convent possession story. This one, I don't think the acting's particularly great in this one. It's heavily inspired by stuff like Demons, and I should love this one, and Nunsploitation. But while watching this one, I really think I'd really rather be watching Demons right now. But I got to give them props for the heart they had in here. Basically, it follows this church where all sorts of crazy things happen. I don't even know exactly what happened. There's a lot going on here. Kind of an awful priest and this possession going through. You don't know somebody's possessed, and they start to control all the children, and at the end it becomes this giant blood fest of kind of gore and splatter and everything like that, where people are getting hacked and slashed. This one's decent. It's all right. Nothing bad with this one, really. I mean, like I said, there's some bad things. That some of the stuff is shoddy, and the acting is and the story, you're like, I don't really, it's a little mixed up and everything like that. But it's okay. It's fun. The next story, I believe, is this the third one. the David Slade story. Is this one come up next? Man, I can't think. Like I said, there is 4 stories in here. No, I missed. I think the second one was actually the Joe Dante story. So that was the third one. The Joe Dante story is a take on a Twilight Zone episode for sure about the beauty is in the eye of the beholder. And this one is fun. It definitely makes some fun about plastic surgery and everything like that. It has a decent twist. Not much to it. Not much. It has something to say, but it's pretty obvious what it's saying, and it's right in your face. Nothing wrong with it. I enjoyed it. I thought it was kind of cool. Like this one. A statement on plastic surgery and how people become obsessed over looks and controlling someone else's looks and everything like that. Like people aren't good enough for them. Yada yada yada. Decent one. Enjoyed it. The fourth one is the highlight of it. It's David Slade. It's black and white. It's super twisted. It feels like it comes from the world of David Lynch and David Cronenberg and David Fincher. It's just twisted. It's a psychological kind of thing about this woman who has a damaged brain, and she has her kids, and she's waiting in this office, and everybody seems off. Nobody looks quite right. Everybody's deformed. She goes into this doctor's office, and the doctor tells her, everybody doesn't look right, right? She they starts to tell her a diagnosis, and he says, well, I have to leave now. And she starts to leave. She loses her kids. She starts to panic. She's running around this disgusting hospital, bumping into janitors and everything. And the sound design is creepy. It's just nasty. Everything's covered in blood, and it's just unsettling and just gross and a nightmare world. And I don't want to be there. It's excellent. It's really great. After watching that one, I'm like, man, these other shorts don't deserve to be with this short. This one deserves something of its own. It stands above them at a much higher level than the other ones. It's great. And the performance from the lead in this one is tremendous. I loved her performance and everything like that. The final story is Mick Garris's. It's also the longest. It's way too long. It's not a great story. It's okay. It involves it's kind of a statement on death about, people being not wanting to lose you. So they kind of try to drag you into the afterlife with them. In the beginning of this one, there's this kind of crummy criminal that kills two this kid's parents and tries to kill him. He ends up in the hospital, and his parents are dead, and the mother's talking to him, telling him, come on, come with me, come die. And apparently if you have a near-death experience, you can see dead bodies around. Thanks Sixth Sense. So she's seeing dead bodies and everything like that, I guess. He meets another person who has that kind of gift as well, or that curse, and eventually the killer comes to look for him, so he has to fight to survive against his own mother trying to drag him into the afterlife, and this kind of killer and everything like that. It's kind of weird how the people from the afterlife become almost like bad. They're bad and stuff like that, and what they'll do to bring their loved one in with them. But it's okay. I think it's a really weird antagonist in this to be the guy who follows him all the way to the hospital and everything like that. I just don't buy it. He looks kind of like a doped up junkie. I don't see him following through and going to the hospital and trying to finish the job or whatever. But okay, I'll let it slide. It's not a great one. It's okay. The wraparound is not great at all, to be honest. I like the idea, but Mickey Rourke is in it, and Mickey Rourke, I don't know what he's doing. He's just there. He's just there, I guess I'll say. But all in all, I said a couple were okay. You know what? I'll give 3 of them a pass, I would say. 1 is excellent, and 1 is just So it's not a bad anthology. It did feel like TV, though. It felt like TV. It felt like something that would play on television. And I know that's not really necessarily an insult nowadays. So much stuff is, huge on television. So yeah, that is Nightmare Cinema.
I'm the projectionist. I'm the curator of 100 years of nightmares, trapped in a silver screen that never forgets.
What are we gonna do? Fight the damn devil.
Just relax. Everything's going to be fine.
Come and get me!
Welcome to my nightmare.
Okay, this next one here is Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. I wanted to check this one out. This one I was interested in. It's directed by the guy who did Troll Hunter, which I think is excellent. So right there is really weird for me because this movie takes place in, it's based on the book Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, which was an excellent kind of child novel story book series that was a bunch of anthology books, and they were really scary stories with great animation that always kind of kinder traumatized kids forever. So yeah, the stories were a little too scary for the books for that age bracket. And Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, the movie, actually the scares are probably a little too scary for the PG-13 group, to be honest. Okay, the scares, let me start with the positive. The scares in here are actually well done. I don't know who they're for because they're terrifying as hell when they happen. They're really dark, they're really grueling. But the kids, the characters, the story, the time setting, everything like that, the tone, none of it works. None of it. It just doesn't feel right. The movie, I said, takes place in, I think, Pennsylvania in 1968 during this, the Vietnam is in the backdrop. Impeach Nixon. He's a Nazi kind of deal. So we know what they're kind of doing. They're trying to compare it to modern times and everything like that. So, yeah. Like I said, it's always funny that they always get the foreign directors or the people that didn't live in America. It doesn't matter if they're foreign or not, but as long they don't have like a strong connection to America. They didn't live here. They didn't grow up here. They didn't spend a significant amount of time here. And I don't feel like these filmmakers did. I know it's not written by them, but his interpretation of what they wrote doesn't come across. Like I said, none of this feels like genuine. None of it feels like when you watch something like Stand By Me or something like that, even though Stephen King's bullies are like serial killers, you do feel that there is some sort of authenticity to it, like Stephen King lived here. He is a piece of Americana. Now, while I was watching Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, it felt like somebody just kind of regurgitating Stephen King stuff with the kids. The kids never felt authentic. None of the things felt authentic. And you really should stick to, make what you know. And I don't think this director knows the United States. And I wonder how a lot of other countries feel when Americans make movies in their countries. Are they like, this is nothing like it, And I bet they are, because I'm feeling this. I'm like, this doesn't feel authentic at all. This doesn't feel, I imagine, like how 68 would be just from seeing like documentaries and growing up in America in general. It doesn't feel very American. The characters don't feel very real. None of the dialogue seems correct. None of the acting seems right. And there's this really weird scene where they go see Night of the Living Dead in the drive-thru because it's public domain, 1968. But my understanding was that Night of the Living Dead, went around its circuit and everything like that, and it didn't really gain notoriety until, the early 70s, and it wasn't popular, but the girl loves it. She's kind of like a horror girl. A monster kid, I guess they'd call him back then. So maybe there's some of that going on, but a lot of it I'm thinking, this really doesn't work that way. Like, I feel like this seems forced and like they didn't understand it. And I also feel like when you go see a drive-in double feature, that the movies actually are playing are movies that are like older from like the 40s or anything like that. So I imagine like you'd be seeing movies from the 50s. You'd be like seeing Them and The Deadly Mantis, not Night of the Living Dead and The Tear. So maybe I'm wrong. I'd really like to see somebody like Joe Dante would have tackled this movie. I think that his perspective would have been more accurate, or somebody like that. So, I don't think it comes across accurate. The monsters are scary as shit. The way the story is, though, it's kind of they sneak it. There's this old kind of myth about the town where there's this woman who hung herself and she was mistreated by her family, and she wrote these evil, scary stories and everything like that. They find the book that she wrote the stories in, and the book continues to write itself, where characters from the movie are being written to these stories. Some of them, which are actually the Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. The Zit one. We have the Toadie I Walker one, and there's a couple other ones. Harold the Scarecrow one, and those are really well done. They're scary as hell, but the characters and everything else doesn't work. Nothing else works in this except the scares. So I would just like this director to stick to some scary stuff, because he can't handle the drama. Doesn't seem right. The characters don't seem right. The acting doesn't seem right. Nothing really seems right except the horror. And it's too scary for the PG-13 rating, and I kind of like that in a lot of ways, because kids are going to be kind of scared like that, and that kind of stuff always made us want to, like when I was a kid, seek out more and everything like that. So it's right down the middle for me. I like some of it, and the other stuff, it just doesn't seem like it. It just seems so forced and everything like that. But that's Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark.
What's that?
It's her book of scary stories.
Some people believe if we repeat stories often enough, they become real. They make us who we are. That can be scary.
Eat it, Harold.
Do you want to see Haunted House?
Some kids went missing, so they boarded it up.
Okay, we saw it. Should we go now?
Who ordered the chicken?
What's that?
It's a book of scary stories.
Tell me a story. Hey, what's going on?
Tommy's missing.
Tommy's name was in the book.
There's no way it's actually connected, right? Okay, what if what happens in the book is exactly what's happened for real? Oh my god. Augie!
Stella!
Listen, you're in the next story. We're reading it right here.
It's a corpse looking for her missing toe.
I'm afraid that we woke something up.
You shouldn't have taken the book.
We've got to stop it.
Sarah Bellows' book, where the stories write themselves and it all comes alive.
The jangling man is coming.
Okay, I got a couple quickies for you. The next one I watched on Amazon Prime, pretty new movie called The Hole in the Ground. This is an Irish movie, and this is going to be a quick review because I don't want to stay on stuff too negative. But this movie right here, within the first 10 minutes, I knew exactly everything that was going to happen, and I don't know if that's a negative for some people, but it was the most telegraphed movie I've seen all year. I knew exactly what was going to happen, and right when they said one line of dialogue, I said, "Oh, we know where this is going. We've seen the Hallows. We know the kind of mythology." And usually I would like stuff like this. I like the monsters from other countries, the mythology, the history, that kind of stuff in movies. So I was like, a Changeling story, that's going to be really cool. So I'm watching this, and there's a couple really great moments, especially how the creatures kind of act revenge or kill people is really cool. James Cosmo is really good in it from stuff like Stormy Monday. He's really excellent in it. But besides that, I never really was invested. It's a Changeling story. Everything happens. It doesn't take any chances. And it just feels very generic in the way it unfolds. It has some nice shots, or some drone shots, a nice setting and everything like that. Not many characters, not many kills, not much suspense. It's very, very kind of generic to me. And I know that some people be into the Changeling story, which is a really cool, scary story, but I didn't care for the Hallows very much either. I thought that some of that was really kind of because the characters were so dumb. I think the characters are more intelligent in this, and I don't hate them. And it ends on a really creepy note, which I enjoyed. I like that, but also at the same time, it just it's so basic by the numbers movie, and it doesn't do anything special to me. Sorry.
You know, when I was your age, I moved town once too. You'll settle in, sweetie.
Maybe.
We're gonna be happy living here, I promise. Sweetie? Chris?
Mom?
Never run off me like that again, okay?
Good morning, Mummy.
Where did you get those? Do you ever look at your kids and not recognize them? He's not himself.
Mom, look out!
It's not your boy.
He's not your son!
Chris reminded her of our son.
What happened to him?
She was convinced that he was an imposter.
It's not Chris. It's not him.
Any history of disorders in your family?
Mummy, what's wrong?
You're not my son. Tell me the truth.
I am.
Stop lying. I'm not lying.
Mommy, where are you?
All right, we're going to do another quickie. It is Pilgrim from Hulu. This is from the In the Dark series, and this is a series they make movies every month at basis like kind of on a holiday. This is November, this is Thanksgiving. And I was kind of right in the middle on this one. Basically what happens is they're kind of a privileged family, and they have a lot of money. They don't have time for themselves, though. So, you know, basically it's about putting on a facade for other people and their family and everything like that. So it's kind of a family that was brought together, you know, one marriage or one split, so that's kind of together, you know. The father and the daughter are from a previous, and then they got married and had another kid. He remarried and had another kid. So there's that. So basically what happens is the mother wants to do something cool, different, you know, kind of be interesting to her friends and bring the family together. So she invites this guy who basically, these actors who don't ever break character that are from kind of old school pilgrims. So they're going to show up and teach them the real meaning of Thanksgiving. Of course, it's a horror movie. It backfires. And we learn this killer has this weird this psychological problem and what he wants to do and put these people in through and make them be thankful. You know, this movie feels like it would have came out in the 90s. It would be like something like The Dentist or Dr. Giggles, like when they used to take occupations and stuff and be like, all right, now you're the killer dentist or you're the killer doctor. So the occupational kind of killer movie or something like that. So this Pilgrim, you know, or like Leprechaun or something like that. But all in all, it's okay. The family has to come together and fight. There's some gore. They do some nice set pieces with the Thanksgiving theme, you know, heads on a plate. And they telegraph or foreshadow, I guess I'll say, because it's a little less annoying. I guess I use telegraph when it's annoying and foreshadow when it's okay, when it's a piece of filmmaking, I think. Foreshadowing in with the Thanksgiving dinner at the end. It's okay. I like the lead girl because, you know, she is kind of a punky, but at the same time, her family is a little annoying except for her little brother, and she stands up to the Pilgrim guy who actually gives in a pretty good performance. So I think this one is worth checking out. It's like an hour and 20 minutes. It's okay.
So we're going to be having some folks join us for Thanksgiving?
We're going to send somebody out here. They're going to teach us how they did things in the olden days.
What do you say we break the wishbone?
1, 2, 3. I can hardly wait. Me too.
How do you do?
You're having pilgrims here? It's a full reenactment of the first Thanksgiving. This doesn't feel right.
You have a wonderful family. We are here to show you what you had. Are you grateful? Happy Thanksgiving!
Families are still important in America.
What are you afraid of? It's just Thanksgiving.
Okay, a Patreon pick right here by Chris Rivers. It's another In the Dark, and it is All That We Destroy. This is another, like I said, Hulu In the Dark one. And the concept here is great. This takes place in kind of the future, and people are comparing it. These are like lame Black Mirrors, and I could see to a certain extent how it compares to Black Mirror. I'm not really, I've only watched one episode of that, but I know the technology and everything like that. So All That We Destroy follows the story of, this is actually a really interesting one, and I'm going to get into depth kind of what happens here, and I'll probably spoil a little bit, so be warned. We have this family, this mom, and she basically has a son who seems psychologically damaged. He can't leave the house, and it's in the future, and she works in like cloning and things like that. She works in cloning organs and everything, and she's discovered that she can clone a human body. or a human. So she's cloning humans. Her son happens to be a serial killer. So basically what happens is at one point we learn that she keeps cloning this person and trying to satisfy that urge of murder so no one else gets hurt. And he is a really twisted, disgusting person. And people are complaining like, oh God, this is a movie. And it's like, that's the point. He's supposed to be that. And the title, All That We Destroy, it's him destroying that person, but it's also the fact that she's destroying her career, destroying her life, and destroying her own, really, and her son and her family and everything like that. There's this kind of holographic state where you can put this on and talk to people and meet them in a certain area and everything like that. And she's constantly talking to her husband, who's really out of the picture, played by Frank Whaley, and she's kind of trying to, discuss how to fix her son and everything like that. And it seems like he's already given up. The performances are really good, and also it starts to get complicated when a neighbor girl moves in and he starts to develop feelings for her, and they start a relationship. The neighbor girl is actually played by the lead from Bliss, and she's really good in this too. I like her. I hope she's in a bunch more stuff because I really like what she's been doing, Bliss and this. So yeah. So what happens here is it tells two storylines: the original murder and then the constant, like him, talking to the current clone and everything like that. And we learn exactly how it happened. And when we're learning how he's treating the clone and everything like that, and how it unfolded, we can make more connections and see everything like that into his psychology. So it's a really interesting look into that and how it ends and everything. I enjoyed it. I really liked this one, to be honest. I thought it was good. I thought it was unique, and I thought it had a great concept, although some people are a little problematic about some of the stuff in it, but that's kind of the point. I think they're missing the point. These are characters. These are not the people they're condoning. They're not telling you to vote for president for these people or anything like that. These are people that are awful in a lot of ways and everything like that. So yeah, I enjoyed this one. I thought it was really interesting and really kind of cool. That is All That We Destroy.
I want her to be real for you. To feel like the real thing, so you can go longer before feeling these urges.
You want to help satisfy his needs. Keep him from killing anybody real.
She seems human. Where am I? Do you remember my son?
How far are you willing to go for him?
She is more than just a copy. She's remembering who she was.
How many times has he killed me?
Okay, the next Patreon pick is, The Headhunter from Shudder. This is picked by, I think it was Jason Willard? No, it wasn't Jason Willard. It was Jonathan Wilhelm, I think. So yeah, we got The Headhunter. This is by the director of Thanksgiving 1 and 3, which blew my mind. I put this in. It's a short movie. It's an hour and like 12 minutes. And I can't remember where it was shot, like Bulgaria or Portugal, somewhere like that is Portugal. So it was an interesting place that it was shot, but they made it look like kind of almost a Scandinavian landscape. We follow this headhunter who seems to be like this Viking medieval type. He's got this beard. He's a big guy. And this movie basically doesn't show you a lot. I think, remember at the end of Reservoir Dogs when people think they're going to see the robbery, but you don't? So it's a lot of that. I don't mind that, though. There's some interesting things here. You hear a lot. So he has a whole wall full with pikes on there, and there's all these different heads, and it puts you into this imagination where you're thinking all these things. Sometimes he'll leave, and he'll come back, and you'll see him stick a Yeti head on there, or like a Wolfman thing, or an ogre. So there is some cool moments where you get to see some of the monsters and everything like that. But really, you just see the aftermath and everything. But what happens is he has this elixir that he heals. So he'll storm into his house, badly beaten from a fight, and put the elixir on and everything like that. And it's a revenge story. So he's out there to look for, the person who killed his daughter, the creature who killed his daughter. So I don't want to spoil too much, but regardless, that elixir can bring things back to life. And he makes a fatal mistake of putting it somewhere he shouldn't. And it turns into almost a really weird moment and a really crazy twist at the end. The special effects are really great. The set design is great. The house looks immaculate. The acting's solid. The guy's really good. And the end scene, how it looks, is top notch. Like I'm surprised. I don't know how they did that, but it looks really good. And the twist is pretty crazy. Even though a lot of it's off camera, I wish it was on camera, because like when they do the effects and everything, I know this is a budget movie, but when they do the effects, they're really good. And with a bigger budget, this would have been excellent. I mean, the cinematography is really good. The locations are really good. The camera works really good. There's lots of like shots in the dark, and they don't look too dark and everything like that, or too shitty, because sometimes in the dark they'll look bad. But there's a lot of walking around and things like that, and scenes that are they're a little drawn out, and you don't see as much as you'd like. And I know that's not really the point, but there is some things I would like to see. And I do like how it ends. It's just insane, and almost like would be funny if the movie weren't so well done. But good stuff. The Headhunter.
I always thought I could protect her. What took her from me is still out there. Back. Vengeance is upon us.
Okay, I guess we're here to cover Anna and the Apocalypse, which had a limited theater release in 2018, like 138 screens or something like that. But technically, the show I'm doing, the 2019 year-end show for, is counting it. So I checked it out. It's on Amazon Prime, I believe. And it's a musical zombie Christmas movie. So, yeah. This one started off, and right off the bat, I was like, okay, this first song's kind of catchy. And then after that, I was thinking, oh, what did I get myself into? I don't not think I'm going to like this. But by the end, I actually was pleasantly surprised with it. What's the plot here? We have some, I guess they're college students, although maybe they're high school.
They're high school.
They're high school, and they're getting on their way to go to college. So there's immaturity levels, but it doesn't have that super annoying. They do have the teenage angst, but it's not coming like it's deep or anything like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's not like the central focus.
Yeah.
Essentially, the one girl, the main girl, Anna, she wants to not go to university. She kind of wants to explore a bit, like go to Australia is, I think, where it's opening up at.
And her best friend's in love with her, so we have that drama. And her ex-boyfriend's kind of a jerk. And then there's the nerdy film kid and his girlfriend and everything. Those are kind of the main characters. What happens is a zombie outbreak happens. I don't remember how the zombie outbreak happens in this one.
On the radio, we're saying, things about like a plague, people attacking each other.
Yeah, people getting sick. Just generic zombie outbreak. But the main set piece is pretty much in the school. The antagonist is pretty much the principal, who is hamming it up, completely ridiculous, hates the kids, very funny. What I liked about this movie was that they didn't really pull their punches when it came to the gore and blood and people getting killed. And at first I was really worried that this was going to go more oriented at children, where it was going to be more family friendly, because some of the music would suggest that it is, and it's a little cutesy. And I was like, this is going to not pull its punches. It's going to pull all its punches. Like, Little Monsters pulled a lot of punches, I think, but still ended up being decent. And this one actually kills a decent amount of the characters, and in gory fashion too.
Yeah, there are characters that bite it that I did not think were going to bite it.
And I was glad they bit it.
Some of them I was glad they bit it. Some of them I'm like, wow, this is pretty soon in the movie for you to be getting rid of them.
Yeah. The main girl has a father who's probably the most sympathetic character, and I really enjoyed him. Him and the principal are the best, I think.
Yeah, they're really good. I did like the ex-boyfriend. I liked his song in particular.
He had a good song, "Killing Zombies, I'm First in the Class" or something like that. That was a little catchy, but the first song, they opened it up with the first song, and it's probably the best song. It's the best put together. It has the whole cast. It's what would you call those? An ensemble piece or something like that?
It's like what's the I Want song, so it goes through each of the main characters and them stating what they want. It's
a good way to set up your characters.
Oh, yeah. And each character has, like, their own part in the song, and they kind of come together again. Those are always nice. The musical numbers are kind of few and far between. There's probably one every 10 minutes or so.
Less than that.
Probably, yeah. What's the runtime on this?
I think it's only like an hour and a half.
Yeah, probably.
So there's probably only like 4 or 5, right?
I think there's like 5 or 6 songs.
Yeah.
There aren't that many where characters are singing to and with each other. So there is no, or there's like maybe 2 where characters actually have an inner dialogue in the song, and that's kind of what I like in musicals is when it's less about like an internal monologue and more like we're having a conversation, but we're doing it through song.
Yeah.
And I tend to like that, and there's a couple of times where this happens in this movie, but other than that, it's very music number.
This is British too, I'm pretty sure, isn't it? Or is it Australian? It's definitely...
It's British because she wants to go to Australia.
She wants to go to Australia. It's definitely British. You can feel it's definitely Shaun of the Dead inspired. It even has one of the guys... The principal actually was in Shaun of the Dead as like a zombie, I believe. So it feels a lot like Shaun of the Dead kind of humor at points where it tries to do like... and it gets goofy with the killing of the zombies in a bowling alley. They use a lot of gags there. So it's actually really fun, and I think it's a good kind of approach to get like almost like teenagers to watch zombie movies or horror movies. I mean, it's probably rated R, but I think it's safe for teenagers, and I think it's definitely the gateway or something like that. And I'm not the biggest fan of musicals, but I do like when they do musical horror movies. I always enjoy them, like Poultrygeist or Stage Fright, not the '87 one, or this one I thought was pretty good too, and I was happy with it. I'm not sure if it's the best zombie movie of the year, but it's coming up with... All 3 of the zombie movies I saw so far were pretty solid, actually.
I think... What else did we watch so far?
I mean, I've watched Ever After and Little Monsters. I don't think you've watched any zombie
I don't think
movies
I've watched any of those.
So I know Zombie Land 2 came out too, and The Dead Don't Die, which I want to see. So yeah, this one I would recommend checking out. I had fun with it. I thought it was a pretty good 2019 wide release. It came on Amazon. So, I mean, it kind of got buried. I feel like it cost a lot of money and it was well put together. And I think that maybe a little bit more, advertisement for it would have done it better. I think it could have done well.
It's a genre film of a genre film. I mean, it's foreign. It's
very
UK.
niche.
It's a musical.
And it's a zombie film.
It's a zombie film, a horror film.
And it's a comedy.
And comedy at Christmas time. It's like, how did this get made? Yeah. Although the ending credit sequence, it's like animated. Really, it's like cartoon cut up, but it's really cute, really fun. I'd enjoy it. I mean, it's not a great musical, but it's a fun movie. It's a fun movie.
The principal's also a really good villain. I wanted to punch him in the face every second he's on scene.
Yeah, I didn't like him at first, but he really grew on me.
Yeah, at first I was like, I hate this character. Get over him. Get him out of here. And then at the end I was like, no, he's perfect. I hate him. So.
Yeah, he goes into like full-on mad scientist mode, and he's just fantastic.
And he's like kicking his legs when he's singing. Yeah, it's cute. It's good.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd recommend it.
Yeah.
Was the night before Christmas, and all through the house, not a creature was stirring, not even a mouse. Young Anna was nestled, all snug in her bed, not knowing tomorrow she'd meet the undead. How would she survive what this season would bring? Well, that's simple. She'd stab, she'd slash, and she'd sing.
Justin Bieber's a zombie.
All right, the next one we're gonna review is Ma. Ma, hey Ma. Every time I hear Ma, and this has got middling reviews. I'm seeing some people give it like 3 or stuff like that. I'm gonna be honest. I thought this was great. I love this movie. Octavia Spencer plays Ma, right? Mm-hmm. Great performance. Probably one of my favorite performances of the year. I think she's amazing. She's got really big, expressive eyes, and she's got really good physical body language and acting. So this movie follows a story of some teenagers who basically they're looking for a place to party. They ask an older lady, like kind of a veterinarian, to buy them alcohol. She sees something that piques her interest, so she invites him into her basement, and she wants to become friends, and she starts vicariously living into their high school life, and it ties back to her childhood and her high school experience and everything like that, and all the people in this town are intertwined in kind of a messed up way. The main character in the movie is I can't remember the girl's name, but her mother used to live here. It's played by Julianne Lewis. She's also a very good actress. Always enjoyed her. So she used to live here, so she's got to come back to the town, so we have that drama. But Ma starts to get attached. We'll just leave it at that. That's pretty good.
That's pretty good.
But, of course, with Obsession, like one of those movies from the 90s, this definitely feels like a 90s style movie with those made with like kind of the stuff, technology, and like kind of scenes that we would have today. But it definitely has that kind of starting off that stalker kind of single white female kind of stuff is what I'm thinking, like The Tie That Binds, just stuff like that, which I don't even know if I've seen all those movies, but I've seen clips and parts, and I know those movies, like what I mean, like the person who becomes obsessed.
Yeah. When Ma is introduced to the kids, like she's like their social media to kind of find out who they are and keep tabs on them. And I don't know if like you've ever had this situation, or like have you ever had this relationship where like you're not too familiar with somebody, you hang out with them, then like over like the next couple of months you're like, man, this guy's kind of creepy. I need to back off from them, and you don't know how to do it because it's like you don't want to flat out say, hey, you're messed up. We need to stop talking. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so the kids have to find a way to distance themselves from Ma, and Ma obviously picks up on it.
Really scary because Ma has ulterior motives.
Right, Ma does have...
And she can have some damaging things. She has other things going on here.
She has an agenda.
Like, almost feels like people under the stairs in her house to a certain extent.
Right, yeah.
And I, like what she's doing and everything like that. And she has the veterinarian, everything set up really well. Another thing I really liked about this movie, it's funny we have so much to talk about with Ma, but not that much with Anna and the Apocalypse, but... So, see, because Ma has a lot going on for it, while Anna and the Apocalypse is basically just the sum of its parts. Like, it's all these things, and that's all it you know what I mean?
And
so,
Anna is just this is it.
So, Ma has this really interesting, like, all the characters, the side characters, the small little bit roles, like Ma's boss, the police officer that helps him out, the kids' fathers and mothers and stuff, they're all really good. They're well developed. They have their moments that are very funny. She's who plays the police officer in the movie. He has a couple really great moments. He's actually the director.
Oh, is he?
Yeah, he's really funny in it. But Luke Evans, he's great too, and he's got this like. To me, he's like if Stone Cold was like not a wrestler, and he's like he's really charismatic. I like him. Everything. Nobody lives. He's in that too. He's really good in this too. And when him and Ma face off, it's a good scene.
Yeah, there's a change in tone, and when they eventually meet. He is a really intense actor in this.
Yeah, he's scary.
Yeah, he's actually, I think, a really good foil to Octavia.
Yeah.
And I had seen Octavia Spencer.
She's in The Shape of Water.
She was in The Shape of Water, and that's when I first recognized her, but
she was familiar, like a character actor playing bit roles for years, like for 20, 30 years, and after all that, I'm like, oh my god, this lady's been around forever.
Like I'd always be watching something and she'd like just be a background secretary or nurse in like some random show or movie.
Yeah, she's in Halloween 2, the Rob Zombie one, and stuff like that. And I saw she was in The Time to Kill, and I think I know exactly who she is in that. Maybe I'd have to, you know what I mean, like just stuff like that, like small role where she pops up in just about everything. So she's really good, and I like to see her get like a starring role. That's probably why she took this, because she's used to getting like supporting. Maybe I know she's won an Academy Award, but to play in this kind of movie and this kind of role, like when she's like trying to seduce the kids to come back to her house and party, she's like videotaping herself. She's like, "I got this alcohol, come party with Ma," and she's saying like real goofy things. And I love that she recreates like her high school, what her high school experience should have been in the basement. She starts playing like 80s songs. She's like dancing to Funky Town and doing the robot, and she's just like not even drinking with the kids though, and everything like that. So it starts off as like a romance, like not like a romance. I'm not saying like romantic, but it's like a romance with them. Like they're like, oh, she's like winning them over, and they all love mom, and then they realize this mom's not right. Like there's something else going on here. The kids are actually really funny. There's some really funny lines in there. I like how they develop calling her Ma. Like he just is like, "Hey Ma, can I have some Hot Pockets?" To that one kid is like, and the kids say a lot of things that they're funny, and they actually seem like real kids.
Yeah, the kids come across as very genuine people, and just like I believe like these characters to be
almost all of them. Yeah. I really love this. This is one of my favorite ones I've seen this year. Great performances. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. It's pretty sad too. There's some tragic stuff in here when you find out about her past and her family life. It's just really sad.
Yeah, it's kind of one of those no one can win scenarios. Yeah. And it's really good. You should watch it.
And I love the psychology of the character. It was just one day. She's probably dealing with it for her whole life, and she was kind of normal at this point, but there's this underlining thing in her, and something just set it off. Like how people sometimes just snap. And that's exactly what happened with Mom. So and great.
She's just intense. You should check it out.
Great stuff.
Are you going to meet a boy? No sex or booze.
Okay. Whoa! Maggie came to party. Let's get filthy. What you sipping on? I got you talking crazy.
Excuse me, can you buy some booze for my friends and I?
Not interested. Please? Hell.
Whoa, there's my girl.
This never happened, okay?
Thanks again for doing this, ma'am.
You guys want to party like rock stars? Follow me.
Let's get drunk!
The bar is open.
What do you think? We don't know this chick.
It ain't much, but it's all you.
Cool basement.
You're free to do whatever you want down here, but nobody go upstairs.
This is so sick.
Welcome to Mars.
What? Love Ma.
It's 5 o'clock somewhere.
How did she get our numbers?
You know where the party is. Those earrings are beautiful, Maggie. You got a sweet mama, huh?
Who are you with?
Just some kids from school.
You have a boyfriend. Men are dogs.
There's something off about Ma.
Seriously? She's harmless. And her basement's pretty much the best drinking spot in town.
We can't go up there. Shh. What the hell?
Thanks for these earrings.
What happened last night?
You don't remember, do you?
Are you guys mad at me for something?
I don't want to hang out at Ma's anymore.
Don't make me drink alone. Don't make me drink alone.
Max, I want you to meet someone.
Nice to meet you, Maggie.
We went to high school together.
Why's my son
You smell just like your daddy.
spending time at your house?
Hey, guys.
That bitch is crazy.
Probably something wrong with me. How does it feel to be on the outside looking in? Let's get this party turned up.
Why are you doing this?
This is the most fun I've had in a long time.
Hammer time!
For all who are willing to pay the price, we invite you to go through the mirror of life.
Okay, we're here to do Hammer Time. And we're here to do Frankenstein Must Be Destroyed, the 5th in the Hammer Frankenstein series, made in 1968. Is it 68 or 69? I think this is a pretty decent entry in the Frankenstein series. Probably the second best, or third best after the first one and Frankenstein Created Woman. I think those are both good. So, yeah, here we go. Peter Cushing's up to his old tricks again. I don't know where the timeline in any of these movies takes place. I don't know how they work, if they work. I don't even think they're freaking related except the first two.
Yeah, I think the first two Frankensteins are their own thing, and then everything else is just, it's Frankenstein.
Whatever, yeah. So, and he's always up to something else. It's not always him trying to create a monster. A lot of times a monster is created, but it's not typically a Frankenstein monster per se. So, essentially the plot is this, is Dr. Frankenstein is kind of hidden again. He doesn't want to be known as Frankenstein. He's run out of town, and he has a partner that they correspond, and they're trying to figure out the same kind of experiments. They're trying to figure out the same thing. Exactly what they're trying to do, I don't remember because it's all bogus science, like we said. So he corresponds with this doctor, and one day he learns that this doctor has lost his mind, and he is in an insane asylum. So Frankenstein is also a murderer. Right off the bat, he cuts off another doctor's head, and he's using these body parts in the lab and all sorts of things like that. So you know that he's a dangerous person. He moves to this town, moves into this boarding house, and immediately blackmails the woman running the boarding house and her husband, who is stealing drugs, and he works at the asylum, so he can get somehow connected in with the hospital, insane asylum, and break that guy out and fix him, and then get the information out of his head. So that's the setup here. So it's pretty ridiculous.
Yeah, it's pretty ridiculous. The cast of supporting characters in this, there are a lot of fantastic people in the background. There's like
Thorley Walters is in here again. He's a police detective. He's great.
He's fantastic. Some of the doctors are really cool. There is, in the beginning of the film,
Veronica Carlson's in here from the last Dracula movie we just watched. Dracula is Risen.
Who is she?
She's the main girl.
Oh yeah. She's really good. The society that meets near the beginning of the film, they actually live in the boarding house, and they're having this conversation about science and politics, the local events, and like Cushing's in there overhearing them, and like these guys don't know what they're talking about, and Peter Cushing essentially just points that out to them. It's a shame though that they do end up a lot of these.
Yeah, like, Thorley Walters even disappears and doesn't get his end, and he's been tracking the whole case the whole time.
Yeah, a lot of these characters, they don't have like, they had their scene, but like nothing really comes of them. The commissioner or the police inspector never shows up.
And the police inspector or commissioner is a dick. Like he's just always cutting people off and always being really rude. And so is Peter Cushing. And I think that the kind of biting like dialogue in here or quips that these guys come up with is probably some of the best moments. Like Cushing, when those guys are running their mouth, because for years him and this other doctor have been chased out of town and everybody's laughed in their faces, and he's trying to like make the next big break in science at no matter what cost, which is kind of the I guess recurring theme in all these Frankenstein movies. And he says, "Are you a doctor?" "No." "That's funny," and he tears these people down all the time. This one actually has a PG-13 rating. I guess it got re-rated because there is some blood in here and some gore and some pretty twisted things.
Yeah, it's pretty gory. There is a scene with Peter Cushing and the girl.
Yeah, Peter Cushing gets a little rapey, and it was like a scene from Corruption, which is the sleaziest Peter Cushing movie ever.
It was just so weird to me. Like I didn't like watching that, and I don't know, probably because it's like I look at Peter Cushing and I have this opinion of him, and to see him do something like that, I'm kind of like, it's kind of weird. It's like when your dog bites you. Like, I don't like it.
You know what was really funny in here? In the opening, there's this weird thing, like, where the character looks like he's, like, burnt, or wearing a mask, and we're like, what's going on? And they're, like, really, like, super, like, fighting and hitting really hard, but they're tiny, and they're really agile and really weird. And I'm like, that must be Peter Cushing, because all these Hammer movies always make him, like, fight ridiculously, like, fast and have a bunch of agility, and then he takes off the mask, and it is Cushing. But, I like what ends up happening is he breaks out his friend and he has to transplant his brain into another body because the body's dying. And what happens is the guy's wife gets involved, who the original doctor, and like her husband is in another body, and this guy loses his mind and he becomes like this monster. So it's not necessarily a Frankenstein monster. It's kind of like almost Revenge of Frankenstein, the Hammer one, where they transferred the brain and his body still deteriorated because it was memorized in his brain. So like all these are different. Like the first one we have a Frankenstein monster. The second one we have the brain transplant body amalgamation through the brain. And then this third one we have a remake kind of the first one or something like that, right? Where they find the creature frozen in the ice.
Thawed, yeah.
And then the fourth one, it's a continuation of the first one, the third one, I mean. And then the fourth one is he puts a man and a woman together in this weird amalgamation. And then this one is a different too. He's just switching the brain. So it's never a straight up Frankenstein monster story. They're all different mad scientist elements in here. I think this one's pretty solid. I think Cushing's really good. I think the dialogue's really good. The acting's really solid. Some of the side characters kind of disappear and don't come back, which is sad. But I like this one. I would recommend this one. It's the third best in the Frankenstein series for sure.
Yeah, I'd say I recommend it. I think it's kind of long.
It's like an hour and 40 minutes, which is long for this. 10 minutes should have been gone.
Yeah, I think that like the third act, I mean, there's like a part where, and they have to do it for like plot reasons, but they like run off to the countryside to like escape the police, and that's where like the guy and the girl kind of like plot like, you know, we're going to escape from him and get to the authorities, yada yada, and it's really like 15 minutes. So like, I know you have to do this because you need to show the upper body, you know, for everything to come together, but it's like, wrap this up, guys. Come on.
This one ends fairly sad too.
It does.
It's pretty mean spirited for a movie like this.
Mm-hmm.
But this is in the creature features. John Stanley. Before I forget, The Taste of Blood of Dracula is next week. So this is Frankenstein Must Be Destroyed. 1970 is when it was released here. That's crazy. I didn't know it was 1970. Later than I thought. I thought it was earlier than that. 3 out of 5. In this fifth in Hammer Frankenstein series, Peter Cushing cuts apart cadavers to create a hulking entity of evil. That's not what happens.
That's not what happens, no.
The Burt Bat script succeeds in being nauseating, as in a grand Ganol sequence where a busted water pipe forces a buried victim up through the mud. Buffs will enjoy the hokum from producer Anthony Nelson Keyes and director Terence Fisher. Others may find it unstomachable or tedious as Cushing dons a fright mask to attack victims, cuts open skulls to extract human brains, and forces assistant Simon Ward to claim the body of Veronica Carlson. Quite beauticious in her what is that word? Did you ever see that word?
What? Quite beauticious in her... Nope, diaphanous?
Diaphanous nightgowns.
Yeah.
Freddie Jones plays the monster. The monster's very good too.
The monster is
He's
really
good.
Yes.
His facial expressions and everything like that, his body language, very good. Way better than the freaking guy in part 3.
Yeah.
That was the worst Frankenstein ever, besides Van Helsing. But I noticed that John Stanley uses a lot of big words, but sometimes the plot is wrong. He never cuts up a body to create a Frankenstein monster. He's trying to do something that doesn't involve that. There's also, it is kind of gory and stuff like that, but there's some claim the body of Veronica Carlson. Like, I don't understand what he means by that. I mean, it's his wife, but it's just like, it's like he barely remembers the movie and just writes like really like swarmy write-ups sometimes. Like, and at first, like, I mean, he's like, obviously he's more intelligent than me. It's a better vocabulary than me, but still, sometimes it's like, and I get it. Like, it's hard to remember 1,000 movies.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, you could tell what he's really into and what he's not, and I don't think he's into that. Hammer movies too much.
I mean, he probably hadn't seen that in years by the time he probably got around to writing that, if you think about it. I don't know, but this one was good. Like I said, it's a bit convoluted, but not too bad. It's just, it could be trimmed up. Although I think I might like this one maybe just a tad more than...
Frankenstein Created Woman?
I think.
Or Curse, the first one.
I like this one more than Curse.
Okay, then you think this one's almost with the second best.
Second best.
7 out of 10.
7 out of 10. Right. 3.5 out of 5.
Yep,
4
we're
out
good.
of 5.
4 out of 5?
3.5.
There we go.
All right.
transplant his brain. If I don't, it will die through lack of oxygen. But that would mean you have to remove someone else's brain to do it. False cow, however. What have you done to him? What have you done to him?
Let me go! Help me! In the name of God, somebody help me!
There is no one in the world who can help you except me. You must leave this house after what I've done tonight. You must be completely trapped.
I won't go without you, Carl. The police. They're searching all the houses.
You must choose between the flame and the police.
Okay, let's get into the questions. We have Jonathan Wilhelm. Is there one piece of movie memorabilia that you would love to own? I think mine would be the golden idol from Raiders of the Lost Ark or the mop from UHF. Ooh, one prop that I would like to own. It definitely would be something from like Day of the Dead or Dawn of the Dead. Geez, I can't think about it. Maybe the two guns that Peter had in Dawn of the Dead. Those are really cool guns. So let's go with that. Nick Mua. Dance movies used to be a thing. Would you ever appear in one? If they taught me how to dance and paid me well, yes. Were you ever disappointed by a movie you really wanted to see for a long time, and why? Yeah, geez, that happens occasionally. Piercing. I'll go with Piercing. I really thought Piercing was going to be way better because Eyes of My Mother I thought was top notch, and it just didn't live up to the hype. I felt like the influences that they, with the music and everything, just didn't match the tone of the movie and just didn't come together for me. Also, originally, when I first saw The Dead Next Door when I was like 13, I was like, this isn't as good as I expected. But as I watched the second, third, fourth time, I fell in love with it. So sometimes it happens where the movie initially disappoints me, but I eventually fall in love with it. Is there such a thing as Thanksgiving horror movie? If so, which is your favorite? Yes, there is a Thanksgiving horror movie. I just covered Pilgrim. I covered Thanksgiving years ago and Thanksgiving 3. So those three off the top of my head. Then there's Home Sweet Home. My favorite's probably got to be Thanksgiving, I think, just because it cracks me up because it's so silly. Dan the Cameraman, do you think you can wait too long to make a sequel like Sin City, A Dame to Kill? Or do you think it can work out regardless of how long it's been, like the 2008 Rambo or Dr. Sleep? It really depends on the movie and the tone and who's making it and everything like that. So it depends. I think it can work. I don't think Sin City works. I think that was way too long, and I think that the budget and the interest had been lost, and that movie needs a bigger budget. So I do think that sometimes it can work. Like Dr. Sleep, I think, worked, and that was kind of an interesting sequel, but that almost seems like it's strange. It doesn't feel like a direct sequel or something like that. Well, Sin City feels like it's supposed to be in the same kind of time period and everything like that. Are you planning on doing a top list of your favorite movies of 2019 at the end of the month? I will, but I'm going to do it first on the top horror movies on 22 Shots of Moods and Horror podcast. So, and after that comes out, I'll probably do it like a week later, sometime in January. And the 22 Shots, it'll be only horror movies and exploitation, and the other one, it'll be everything. On my channel, it'll probably be like a top 30. Tim Hayes, do you hear there's going to be a DVD release of The Keep? Saw a link on Twitter, no Blu-ray, but it looks like an Australian DVD. I did hear that. I'm a little leery about just DVD. Like, I can't imagine the quality being great. I don't know. I'm leery. I'll wait and hear. I'll sit on that one. And then we have answers. Last week I asked what 2020 releases you were looking most forward to. Jonathan Wilhelm, as far as 2020 releases, I can't wait for Child's Play sequel, or the Sorority Babes and a Slime Bowl-orama 2. What else? Let me get to the next page. Nick Mua. I love the Turning of the Screw original adaptation. So The Innocents. So I'm still very excited about the 2020 re-imaging entitled The Turning. Also look forward to Bond 25, No Time to Die. I believe Daniel Craig versus Rami Malek could just be epic. Lastly, The Trial of the Chicago. Seven Tickles, My Fancy History. Fascinates me, and with an Adam Sorkin. There's no punctuation in this, so it's a little kind of jarring. Screenplay and actors like Frank Langella, William Hurt, and Joseph Gordon-Levitt. How can you go wrong? Viper Rose 1978. Nice review. A little different this time. Thank you. I'm looking forward to 2 movies in 2020. Del Toro's Antlers and a horror western called The Pale Door. Oh yeah, the girl you saw in Satanic Panic you thought was Anna Faris is actually Ardalyn Myron, formerly from Ad TV. They do look similar sometimes though. Thank you. I knew I messed that up. Dan the Cameraman, looking forward to Bill and Ted Face the Music and the new Ghostbusters in 2020. Looks like the 80s nostalgia wave continues. Ha, yeah, it looks like it's never going to end. Dead Flintstone, I'm looking forward to Tenet, Dune, and No Time to Die. Great directors behind all 3. The Mystagogue. He actually corrected me because I asked what was Coco di Coco Da, and he says it's a movie, Mrparka, and I had never heard of it, so that kind of confused me. Lex Crossley, The Onana Club. I had heard of that. I don't remember exactly what it's about, though. Billy Punn, Cowboys from Hell. So, yeah, he's directing that one. So, cool. He did, what is it? A Circus of the Dead. So, Angela Jane Nagdy, Godzilla vs. Kong. And Patrick Massell says, if they don't push it back again. And they seem a little disappointed about that. Keith Christian, Color Out of Space and Antlers. Brandon Salkill, Antlers looks pretty cool. I'm excited for that creature. Justin Burning, Dune. Ronald Pastillo, The Kindred and Hot Dog from Synapse Films. He's talking about Blu-ray releases. Justin Burning. Anne Gretzel on Hansel. Morton Grizzly. Hanson, A Quiet Place 2, Godzilla vs. Kong. Derek Bourget. Derek. Godzilla vs. King Kong. And he says King Kong will get his ass kicked this time. No stupid lightning technicality. John Soloway, hopefully the final interview on DVD. Jonathan Knight, Bill and Ted Face the Music. Scott Shermer, My Mom's Scheissel video, volume 352. It's supposed to be pretty good. Sure. Neil Machino. I never said your last name first before. So Maggots, he did Mold, so that's cool. Rakesh Brown, Little Necro, Red, and VFW. He also says Color Out of Space and The Platform. And he also mentions the Serbian film documentary. Mark Humphreys, Godzilla vs. Kong, as long as it's not delayed until 2021. BDG Reviews, Antlers, Dune, Godzilla vs. Kong for sure. Amy Fox Goodwin, Brandon Cronenberg's Possessor, and the remake of The Grudge. I'm also looking forward to a few 2019 physical releases that I missed or would like to see again. Christian James Dorer, Godzilla vs. Kong. Not sure if it's going to be any good, but I'm a diehard Godzilla fan, so I'll be seeing it no matter what. Color Out of Space, Antlers, and Dune. And then Old Answers, Bumpus Hounds. His favorite horror film of the year was Satanic Panic, and his runner-up was Child's Play. And I guess, question of the week, I'm going to ask, what do you guys think will happen with physical media? Do you think there'll be something after 4K? Do you think they'll continue with 4K? Do you think that all these streaming services will push people back to basically hard formats because it's been to be a cable package basically. You have 10, 20 different streaming services you have. So it's going to push you back into a cable kind of deal. So what do you guys think is going to happen with hard format? Is DVD going away? Is Blu-ray going away? Just let me know your guys' thing. So I guess we're going to hop into the update. Okay, here we go. Let's start this off with the 4Ks. Pet Sematary picked this up Black Friday, $10. Yeah, this is the remake. I'm not sure if I'll like this, but I needed to watch it for the 2019 watches, and for $10, hell, it's like half the price to rent it, so why not? I like the original, so hopefully I like that one. Not sure if I will. Then we got Shape of Water. Also a great price on this one. Excellent movie. Only got to see it the one time. Del Toro, one of his finest. Looks amazing. Great stuff. So, had to get it in 4K. Couldn't pass up The Shining for a great price on 4K. Classic movie. Kubrick. Been a while since I've watched it. So, yeah. If I revisit, might as well be in 4K, right? Great movie. Good stuff. Of course, we got It in 4K. Wanted to get ready for the sequel. Haven't seen that yet either. So, yeah. It's a good, great price, $10. I really enjoyed that one when I saw it. I haven't rewatched it since. Then we have Crawl, which I tried to watch this and I just couldn't get into it yet. I'm sure it's okay. Again, Black Friday, dirt cheap, $10. So, yeah, if the storm doesn't get you, they will. Aja did this one, so he's got a pretty decent track record. And then we got a Kino release here, Stick, Burt Reynolds. Come on now, looks awesome. Gonna check this out for sure. Like Kino, this one looks fun. So, yeah. Back to the video. All right. Thank you very much, guys, for watching. And as always, you guys have a good one.